Okay, I'm going to do another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today I have a cool showcase for you from the brand Cincy Strap Company. A little bit about them. They are founded out of and still run out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Pretty much their idea was to bring quality straps and accessories at great prices while providing the highest standards of customer service. Now, this brand has been on my radar for years now, and I was finally able to check out a couple. So big shout out to the brand Cincy Strap Co. for sending these in because I was kind of torn. I was looking at their SF1, which is, as you guys can see, is kind of the more ribbed style textured fabric, or the SF2, which is the more traditional style strap. So I was looking at those and I kind of asked if I could take a look, and they decided to send these in. So thank you to them for sending them in. And I have to say, I was very surprised by a couple of features that kind of were a little undersold on their website. And the pricing is outstanding, of course, at only $24 each. So definitely worth taking a look at. Today, of course, I'm going to use this Invicta 1953 Pro Diver as kind of the example, and you'll see why that comes into play, because it does have a little bit of a thickness kind of issue to it. So when you are running these types of straps underneath, you're of course going to want something that's very, very thin. So that's a place where I was actually very pleasantly surprised when it came to the execution of these particular straps, specifically the SF2 vintage military nylon strap. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, now this whole thing actually started out with me being very interested in these two straps and kind of weighing them out one against the other. Their SF1 Admiralty Gray nylon, as you can see, versus their SF2 dark gray. And I like the look of both of these. I'm a big fan, of course, the dark gray color. And I really wanted something that I could possibly pair with my my SPB 333 Save the Ocean Slim Turtle. And if you guys are fans of my Instagram, you saw that I paired this strap with it. And it was very, very nice. You can see one of the things I really like about this is the fantastic texture. But one thing that I was really pleasantly surprised about was the thinness and the gauge of this strap. I mean, for a dual pass strap, that is super thin. And the nice thing is, it doesn't necessarily feel like cheap because it's thin. And I know sometimes, unfortunately, brands will add a very thick nylon just to kind of say, hey, like, this is a very premium nylon. I like that Cincy Strap Co. kind of went the other direction and said, hey, look, if we're going to do a nylon strap, let's make it thin enough to where you can wear it, with certain watches. And let's say like this Invicta here, one of the drawbacks, I mean, although it's an amazing watch for under $100, is that it does have quite a bit of a bubble back. So when you do run a nylon strap underneath, typically you're adding a lot of extra thickness. But you can see here, even with the traditional dual pass setup, it's barely adding any extra thickness. So I thought that was really, really neat and a cool surprise. And if I was working at Cincy Strap Co., I would probably, really market that as like a selling point in terms of like, hey, these are ultra thin, and you're still getting the dual pass, which means that you're still going to get this piece of hardware, which I think really balances out the aesthetic, because you're going to be getting, of course, you're going to see the hardware and the keepers on both sides of the watch while it is on your wrist. So I think that is very, very cool. Some big differences, although the pricing is the same, and even the colors, you can see there's some different tints, gray versus gray or green versus green, do appear a little bit different. But the main difference here, apart from, of course, the nylon being used in the style, is going to be the actual length. So you can see here, these SF2 straps are quite long in comparison to the SF1. So I like the extra length. For me, that is a huge selling point, because I do have a larger wrist at about 7.5 inches. So for me, having that extra length that I can fold the watch, the slack back underneath, is actually a huge feature, because let's say when I have this on the wrist, right, and then I'm gonna run this back through, if I have enough material, the nice thing is now I can actually set that in. Then I can just, thanks to this floating keeper, I can just walk that on ahead, and then it locks in and looks very, very tidy. Now, if it's too short, unfortunately, what can happen is I'll have just enough slack to where I can't fold it back. So let's say I have this much slack, and then like folding that much back is really tough. But thanks to the sliding keeper, what I would do is I would just kind of pinch it like this, which is going to be a bit more utilitarian looking in nature, but from me looks a little bit less finished. So that would be a downside, but that's just for me with my larger wrist. If you have a 7-inch wrist or below, this is going to be perfect for you. But for me, 7.5-inch wrist, I prefer to have a little extra length. So if I could, combine these two straps, I would take the length from this strap and I would add it here just so that I could get a really perfect, a fold back over, and I wouldn't have to cinch this down like that. So that would be really my only critique. And honestly, I think at first I was kind of thinking like, hey, it'd be nice if these were just a touch thicker, but I really like how thin they are, and that you still get the symmetry of having the metal ends on both sides. Like, I think that's actually very unique. A lot of brands now will do a shorter strap, essentially like a 10-inch or a 10.5-inch strap, and then what they'll do is basically have the second keeper sliding so that you could just tuck the tail in and not worry about folding it back over. So it's cool that they kind of took this route. I would say to make this strap feel even more complete, although I don't know, of course it would be additional tooling, I would probably even want to do a tighter keeper here, because you can see there's still plenty of room in that keeper. Because of how thin this fabric is, I would have almost went with a lower profile keeper to make this just feel a little bit more tailored and a little bit more premium. But at $24 each, this isn't really meant to be premium. This is just meant to be a good strap, and it absolutely does that. Offers bang per buck, quality value ratio. So very nice. But let's go ahead and get this piece on the wrist and see how it wears. And normally I'd cut away for that if this was a watch review, but since this is a strap review, I'll go ahead and show you how I would put this on. So then I would just go ahead, get that through there, and then like I mentioned before, thanks to that floating front keeper, I'll just go ahead and pass this back through, and then I'll walk that extra keeper right to where it needs to be to hold this in, and it looks very tidy, and you can see not adding a lot of thickness there when you look at that. So I think that's really, really cool. So check that out. I don't want to have it too close to the camera because then you're gonna get some lens distortion. So what I'll do is I'll keep my wrist down here and I'll just tighten the shot up a bit so you guys can get a look how this is gonna wear. And I think it's really, really smart. Again, and even underplayed and undersold on the website listing of how thin this is. And again, you're getting that signature look where you're getting both keepers. And I mean, aesthetics are aesthetics. Yes, functionally, it's still going to do the same job if it was a single pass. But that aesthetic for me is very, very classic. And I like that. It adds a lot of balance. Although, of course, you could re-engineer the strap, make it shorter, make the buckles all go underneath versus onto the side of the wrist. But, there are straps out there that do that. But what I like is that, for a fraction of the cost of, some of the more premium strap options out there, you can get a super competent, super thin, this is almost like a class leading by accident in terms of it being very, very thin. So you have one of those nice new SPB Seiko divers, something like that. Now you can wear it and it's still gonna be nice and close to your wrist just because of how thin everything is, and you're still gonna have the nice buckle here, so you can still have that symmetry within that look. So very, very cool. I like the shades of color here, although, you know, they are different. You can see, you know, the Admiralty gray versus the dark gray. This has almost like a blue steel slate kind of color to it as well. So this is going to work really fantastically on, you know, let's say if you have anything that looks like an old school Tudor snowflake sub, you know, those old issue watches, like this is perfect for those types of watches. This is going to look fantastic as well. I do really love this design. You know, it kind of makes me think of some of the more premium straps that are out there now from some of the OEM watchmakers that they're putting and pairing that they charge big dollars for. So very cool. And even though this one isn't as super thin, it's no slouch either. It is very, very thin. I'd say it's even thinner than it appears because the ends have a really nice finished look to them, as you can see, but they do rise a little bit. So the center portion is actually quite thin. It's really just the ends which are protecting those ends, of course, from fraying or anything like that, giving the strap a lot of body. So for me, if I was going to perfect this strap, this was definitely my favorite of the bunch. But if I was going to perfect it, I would just make it either longer, you know, to be the same length as these SF2 straps, or what I would do is make it shorter and then change, you know, make this fixed and then this one sliding, and then I think it would be, you know, quite perfect. Unfortunately, as much as I love this one, you know, I'm probably not going to wear it as much as I had hoped. If you guys look at my Instagram again, if I hadn't mentioned, I did show how this fits, and I think color wise it's a perfect match. Unfortunately, my wrist is just too big to wear this style of strap, at least in as the tidy fashion and manner that I prefer to wear them in. But for you, again, this could be great. But yeah, basically my Save the Ocean Glacier Dial Slim Turtle. Man, it looks really great on this. It's just unfortunately due to the size differences. So Cincy strap company, if you're watching, if you would want to make me a longer one off or something like that, I'd really appreciate it. But yeah, otherwise, guys, these things are sweet. I love the color palette here. The tone is perfect for something with a gilt dial. And again, it just goes to show that when you have that thicker style of diver, having a very, very thin nylon strap really pays dividends in terms of the wear profile. It's barely off of the wrist there. You can see if you look at it from this angle, it doesn't even look like it's off the wrist. So check that out. Of course, it wants to focus on everything else, but look. Of course, if I like really try to, oh, look at it, this room under there, I could accentuate it, but you know, just giving you an honest look at that, it's not adding a lot of height. So it wears really cool. So I think that was awesome. They're not the perfect straps, but you know what? For the prices that they're charging, I can't be too nitpicky with these. So with all that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.